Hello, Internet, and hello, War of the Visions fans. I'm Jackie Fox, and recently I made a post about a theoretical design for Rosaluna and what I wanted to accomplish with that design, what I would do, and how I would fix a lot of the inconsistencies and perceived issues of the wotv meta with one unit. And one of the biggest issues here that we're facing now is that with a new power level and no hint of an upgrade system that will bring old units to this new power level, then we're running into a place where there's only a few viable options on the field, and every time a new option is added, it gets pretty much added to that team. That team becomes stronger, more indomitable, and more, I don't know, it's more of a whale requirement at that point because you have to pull all of the newest units to be able to pull off this newest team. So it is definitely boxing out a lot of players from being able to compete. So what I really wanted to do here was to build a unit that would, A, not really work in that way, but also B, would really bring up a bunch of other characters with her. So for that, I'm using a 100 cost wind arrow unit. This is going to be a hybrid support type with an attack of 400 and a magic of 680. Now, in modern comparison, neither of these stats say DPS. Even older DPS style units would have potentially had a higher attacking stat than this. As I say in my larger video, this kind of compares her like to Shalza in terms of magical attacking power. And honestly, Shalza does have a fair amount of attacking power. She's not a unit that's set up to attack a lot or to support by attacking, whereas Rosaluna really is a unit that supports by attacking. And as you can see, she also has the capability to add more physical or more magical damage to her kit through her sub-job, so a little bit of sub-job flexibility there. So, with all that being said, let me do something to encourage the rest of you to watch the longer video, do what wotv does, and show off a few of the things that I'm putting in her kit so that you can understand better what I mean to do with this unit. So Rallying Spirit is her single target buff. It's going to raise her wider area attack resistance 35 maximum. It's going to hit that maximum on diamond AoE skills, which are really what I'm worried about the most for her, because those skills have the most potential to just reach into the back row where she might be hiding out and take her out along with some of her friends. So this is kind of a scary situation for her, and she wants to be able to survive it. This is probably the best way of going about surviving that particular situation. There are things I could have done that would have been a little bit better in general, but this is better in the specific scenario that I'm worried about for her. Range +1 is going to help her make the shift into offensive mode from buffing mode. And finally, it's going to provide a follow-up attack aura for self. So a follow-up attack aura is going to mean that she is going to be following up other people's skills. And this has a lot of potential to be very powerful because you're getting potentially a lot of follow-up attacks, especially if you're partnering with AoE attackers. This could be like 6 follow-up hits before you get to do damage again. So let's look at that follow-up skill, exactly what that does. 75% non-elemental physical missile damage. First of all, it doesn't do anything before dealing damage, so nothing is really going to increase the power of this. You'll notice that it's physical because I'm taking a leaf out of Noctis's design book, and I am giving her the follow-up damage in an attack type that she's least suited to do, which means that the damage from this is going to be relatively low. Because this, to me, isn't about the damage. I mean, sure, it is a way of removing courage. If the initial attack procs courage, she will kill that unit with her follow-up damage because they only have 1 HP. But I don't want her to necessarily be able to deal with people with re-raise. I don't want her to be adding too many bodies to her kill count because of this follow-up skill, even though it has that potential. I really want it to be more of a way of her adding debuffs to other people's attacks. So this is going to lower healing power by 25 and remove shell, which is going to open up your enemies for even more magical destruction. But also that lower healing power of 25, it's not necessarily high for lowering healing power, but it is high to just get tacked on to something like this. So, for very little effort as a part of her buffs, she has a way of removing healing power for several turns on multiple attacks. So that is personally interesting for me and goes a long way in countering the sustain meta, I think. So this could be very important for her. And then that gets upgraded, and this adds the coolest thing in her EX. And when you look at this as an aura, at first, it's very easy to think that this is OP. But I encourage you to think about the way that this works. So courage at 70% HP or higher aura. And what this is going to do, I often call this auto courage, but in this instance, I want you to think of this as one hit resistance, or basically a backup plan. Because if you think about it, for most of the sustainy brawler units that are available right now, Kingmont and Joom in particular, in theory, this does nothing for them. Because most of the time, because they are very tanky and because they have a lot of HP, you're only going to take them down to about half HP with your hit, even if you're doing a lot of damage. And then they're at 50% HP or lower. And if they die from this point, courage never happens. To actually remove one of these characters and get courage to proc on them through this skill, that you would probably have to go from like 10 or 11,000 HP to 0 for courage to happen. So in theory, this doesn't do anything for them. And it is a big deal within her kit. So this discourages you from using her with them. But also, both of those units already have courage. So this does more than nothing for them. It does nothing for them, potentially. But enough about the skill not doing anything, because it actually does a lot. At least if we're talking about the types of units that I want to push forward and ally with this unit. I want her to work with missile teams. I want her to work with a bevy of missile units that are very one-tappable. I want her to work with a bunch of older mages that are very one-tappable. I want her to be even the centerpiece of an MR-related team that itself might be one-tappable. There are a lot of characters that are balanced such that if they were to have one more turn in battle, they would be much more impactful. But units that can often take damage and lose and fall off the battlefield before they've even done their first thing, which is a real feels bad moment in War of the Visions, and she's meant to prevent that feels bad moment specifically. That being said, as an aura, they are going to have to stay within 4 spaces of her, which could be a little bit harder because she's going to be a little bit more of a low movement ranged unit. But, I mean, that encourages you to think a little bit differently about how you choose the units that work with her. And then, I'm going to move on to one of her passives. This is also a passive that gets upgraded. It starts as Destined Daughter. 10 AoE resistance, which is going to be permanent. The rest of this effect is only going to last for the first 4 turns of the fight. And for the first 4 turns of the fight, it's going to raise her accuracy by 25. She already has a lot of luck and some accuracy on her board, so this is going to give her quite a bit of accuracy. And it's also going to reduce her damage taken by 15%. Which means that she's going to be pretty hard to remove when you combine this with other things in her kit for at least the first 4 turns of a fight. And also she's going to be pretty accurate for the first 4 turns of a fight, so she might be able to take out evasive units before they can reach her, interestingly. But then, upgrading that into EX, it changes to Destined Sister and adds an additional effect, which is accuracy down 15 on her critical hits. Now, she has pretty low dexterity, so her ability to get critical hits regularly is going to be a bit low. However, she does have a way of increasing her critical rate within her kit, or at least within her LB. So the first thing her LB is going to do is raise her critical rate by 20. for 3 turns. So this is going to essentially make her a lot better at hitting that accuracy down effect on opponents. But also, this is a 3-hit single target skill. So the unit that it hits, it will hit 3 times, which gives it 3 chances to proc its critical. Therefore, it's very likely that this is going to, in addition to everything else you see on screen, lower their accuracy by 15. 200% hybrid damage. It's really hard to tank hybrid damage, actually, because of the way that it works. There are going to be some units that might be good at this, but I really think that this is going to be hard to build against. Not a huge damage move, and in fact, I think in a lot of situations this might actually reduce damage by kind of using or incorporating one of her weaker stats in the damage calculation, but it also has the chance of doing that for your opponents as well. Though, especially given the way things are, the lower stats are probably going to be on the magical side, and those are going to be the ones that she's going to be interacting with more natively. So again, I think this probably does less damage in most scenarios, but it is pumped up in such a way that she will like to use it, and she will often get critical hits with it. It's going to do a number of things to the unit that it hits. It's going to seal their re-raise removal. It will dispel their hate. So this is likely to hit a tank first. So she's going to be removing or wiping the hate off of tanks. And then finally, it has a high chance of inflicting slow. Slow, in addition to poison and theoretically frostbite, even though I didn't feel that it was flavor right to put frostbite in a win units kit necessarily, even if she is from Wizette, the daughter of Curie, all of those things. Still didn't want to put frostbite in her kit. That feels like to me thematically a very ice thing, so I'm going to leave it there. But she does have a lot of ways of dealing with people's AP, because AP regeneration, HP regeneration, and increased speed are the 3 of the biggest ways that units are consistently interacting with the meta these days. So being able to deal with all of those things is important. Specifically, a lot of damage units these days get haste on using their limit burst. So she has a very high chance of countering that, because slow will not only dispel haste when it lands, but it will also take their stats in the opposite direction. And then, if it does inflict slow, she will gain 200 CT, which is about a fifth of a turn, and 10 AP, which isn't much, but it puts the Siphon in Siphon Storm. So this is going to be a fairly powerful move, and it fits in the general constellation of missile LBs in that it does something to keep them from getting to you sooner. Now, Rosaluna is going to be a unit that is more comfortable than most ranged units have been about units getting closer to her. And especially in this meta right now, where there isn't as much competition for her, she's going to do pretty decent damage, and I think that will fade with time, to the point where it's more the support effect on her AoEs hitting than the actual damage that she's doing. And also, I think that she's going to be really durable early on, but I think that will also fade as standards raise, and she is going to eventually resemble more the missile unit that she is. At least within our expectations. But at least for right now, upon her release, I want her to be durable and at least be able to do some decent damage, like backup and support damage, or in this case, starting a chain. Because this, if you have a 3-hit skill like this, you don't necessarily want to do the most damage always. You want it to set someone else up to do a lot of damage, or in the case of PvE, if it does a lot of damage like this is what you do when you have the chain built up, and then you have her hit the damage cap 3 times in a row after that. But I don't think she's going to be a good unit at doing that much damage, but a lot of older units are with proper chains in PvE, so I think she could make it, honestly, with that especially. And, having a high chance of inflicting slow is very helpful in PvE as well, especially with the effect of gaining CT and AP when you slow your target as well. You just want to make sure that the boss you're going into the fight with doesn't resist slow, as about half of them do. So with all of that being said, that's been an examination of some of the biggest things in her kit. So far, we've looked at both of the skills that get EX upgrades. So some of the biggest and beefiest walls of text in her kit, some of the most upgraded things, and also her LB. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Also, especially if you're liking and subscribing on this video, if you're kind of giving me the signal that you want to see the longer video. But also, especially if you comment. So if you really want to see the full kit of this character, even though, unless some sort of a Gumi executive sees this, or one of the Gumi designers sees this and says, oh, you know what? No, actually, these are really good ideas for Rosaluna. Let's use some or all of them. You probably aren't going to be running into this character naturally in War of the Visions. But if nothing else, this is a way of stretching our brains at imagining what a new character might be like, but also in imagining a character that doesn't have some of the same flaws that a lot of characters have had recently, something that doesn't fit the cookie cutter of recent design that has been a little boring. Especially when there's more mechanics and flexibility than ever. And I really had a lot of fun reimagining the way that things might work within her kit. Having an auto courage aura, for instance. Auto courage is a thing that exists in the game. Auras are a thing that exist in the game. Giving auto courage through an aura, I think it's one of the real strokes of brilliance within her kit that I can give myself credit for here, because hopefully it really does what I intend and allows a lot of older units to have a place where they can be impactful again, and maybe kind of return to some of the reasons that some of these units were popular in their heyday. So again, the effect that I want this unit to have isn't a negative one that further consolidates the meta into whatever the supergroup is at the time for whatever the last 3 units released are, so that, which is good for whales. I want this instead to be a unit that is a good pick for collectors, for people who have a lot of older units that were at some point really good, because a lot of those units just need a commander or a strategist like this that can raise them back up into prominence. And we've seen that, like Sephiroth was a good example of this, bringing in a number of characters that, people are playing them for sure, but especially when you're talking about like the fire teams that he's most often being paired with, people are playing these units, but they aren't winning because they don't have that team leader that does the thing that allows them to turn the tide in battle the way that his curse does. And without giving Rosaluna curse or really any single move or ability within her kit that is that powerful, I also want her to be able to do a similar thing to, shelter units against the corrosive meta instead of, being part of that corrosive meta. Now, that being said, I'm sure that with all of the capabilities and all of the techniques that I've given this character, that she will still tactically work very well with those new units, and she might even be used with them if it were released this way. Like, she could be pretty strong with Ashamont and June, for instance. Just because those two characters are going to keep the heat off of her pretty much permanently. Like, they're both incredible brawlers. So that just gives her the opportunity to follow up damage, heal, and all sorts of things from behind. Oh yeah, she can heal. So lots of things for you to discover in her kit, but thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can. You all can. Like and subscribe. Please, it's free. Just do it. Also, check out the link in the description. Buy my books if you can. They aren't free, but they do help pay to put food and clothes on my kids and on their table. So thank you so much. And with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.